Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at the Roadmaster Exact Center steering stabilizer for Jeeps. Now you're going to want to use our fit guide on etrailer.com to make sure that you're getting the proper kit for your Jeep. Now Jeeps do have a steering stabilizer from the factory here, and some systems will actually just replace this. Well, this one works in conjunction with it. And what that's going to do is, as you're steering, the death wobble of Jeeps really comes down to it trying to find that center and bouncing back and forth. And having struts inside of the exact center is going to allow that to kind of taper in and take that death wobble out. But also you're going to get more steering feel because having a fixed point here on our track bar and then mounted to our tie bar means that those struts are going to compress as you turn, and it's going to bring it back to center when you let go of that steering wheel. This is what our exact center looks like when it's installed on our Gladiator, and this is attached to a bracket that's going to go to our track bar, and down the way on our driver's side we have our bracket that is going to attach to part of our tie rod. So as a Jeep owner, you probably know what the death wobble is, or at least heard of it, and it is quite terrifying. And feel free to check out some videos on that and see what it's about, but it is not a great situation to be in while driving your vehicle, and really it doesn't stop until you bring the vehicle to a stop. Well, this, having those struts to kind of center it back in, should eliminate that death wobble, and also you're going to get some of the vagueness that you get in the steering wheel just kind of eliminated. You get a little bit more feedback. You get a little bit more sure-footedness when driving your vehicle, and having that feedback in the steering wheel just makes for a better driving experience. Also, if your vehicle kind of wanders on the road, this will also help that by keeping it tracking nice and centered up. Now, another added benefit for you Jeep owners, if you're flat towing your Jeep, you've probably learned that you can't back up, and the reason being is it's going to jackknife the vehicle. And when you're driving something like this, if you get in a tight situation, having to go and unhook the Jeep kind of just makes for a long, tedious thing just to get a little bit more turning radius. If you can just back up a little, it makes a world of difference. And the exact center is going to keep those wheels nice and straight, allowing you to actually back up. Now, while doing this, you're going to want to go very slow and take your time. Also have a spotter while doing it, and just be careful, because if you go a little bit too extreme, it is still going to turn the wheels, but this is going to at least keep it in track, and that way you can still back up. Now here we are in a real world application. Dick needs to fill up with propane before hitting the road, and normally he can't back into this spot, and there's a gate here, so if he pulls in, he's going to have to back out, or if he backs in, he's going to have to go forward. And either way, that would have been a situation where he's not going to be able to do it with his towed vehicle. Well, let's see how it works. This is a decent amount of distance of backing up, and definitely something that wasn't possible before the exact center was installed on the Jeep. Another added benefit is going to be the fact that it's going to bring the steering wheel back to center, reducing the amount of counter steer that you need to do after a sharp turn. So we're just going to go in a small radius here, and I have it full lock. Now as I let go, the Jeep's still kind of following that same semicircle, and now it's finally starting to kind of center itself back up, but it does take a little bit. So instead of having to fight that wheel back to get it centered, this is going to kind of bring it back to that center for you, making just driving a little bit more responsive. You're not going to have as much vagueness in the steering, which Jeeps necessarily don't have the best steering input, and a lot of that has to do with the suspension and tires, but this should allow this to kind of bring that steering wheel back a little bit quicker. So the first thing we're going to do before kind of going back to that radius and seeing the difference is making sure obviously it tracks straight. So find a nice flat straight shot of pavement that you can kind of just take your hands off the wheel and let it do its thing, and it should go straight, and if not, we'll be able to adjust that out. And ours looks pretty good. This isn't the flattest spot of asphalt here, so we're going to get up to a different spot and we're going to see how it does. Pulling slightly to the left, not bad, just enough to where it really wants to kind of keep going that way. Pretty decent though. So now this will be the first real turnaround where I'm going to see what this does as far as kind of bringing our steering wheel back to center, or the exact center. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's definitely noticeable. Now, I've done exact centers on RVs, and those are very, very quick to kind of bring them back to center. This is definitely, it's not as aggressive as those by any means, but the steering feel is significant. As you probably know, driving a Wrangler, it's kind of vague. It's not the most, you can't really feel a whole lot of input of the steering wheel, and over the bumps, our steering wheel staying nice and straight here. I'm not having to do a whole lot. It's tracking great. And but yeah, definitely the feel, the feedback that I'm getting from the steering wheel, it gives it a slightly heavier steering. And some of the best cars that have great handling out there are ones that have a heavier steering feel. So it's by no means, you're not having to fight it, but it does feel pretty good. The feedback is there, and it feels like I can really handle a little bit better. Now we're back at the same spot. I'm going to go ahead and do a full lock turn here and see what it does. Wow. Yeah, no, it's definitely already kind of stabilizing it out to where it's not just trailing in that slightly larger radius. It does kind of start to pull me straight, so definitely noticeable. And that was a look at the Roadmaster Exact Center Steering Stabilizer for Jeeps.